Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, international football, and sometimes MLS, because we're Americans. This week, Arsenal continued our long, strange trip as we played a couple of our 4 consecutive games away from home. This week, we were at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea in our Carabao Cup campaign, and then we traveled to a city ground to play Nott'm Forest in the Premier League. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. That's a lot. It's a wild week. I mean, it's kind of weird. We talk about how much they've traveled, and then you realize, like, from Nottingham down to Portsmouth is probably like the distance between Houston and Dallas.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels so much further than it is.
But we'll talk about this later. They're going to Milan in a couple days, so that's there's your frequent flyer miles, really.
Yep,
that's where
that's a real trip.
Yeah, that's where you're going to start to rack up. But yeah, it's finally wintertime around here. It definitely almost hit freezing last night. I don't know. How about is it almost freezing where you are?
Oh, it's below freezing, and yeah, we've had a couple consecutive days of snow this weekend, so kind of dashing our weekend plans all to pieces. But tomorrow's a holiday, so we can make up for it, and hopefully it doesn't continue to snow.
Good old, I say it does kind of ruin it a little bit when the snow day comes over a holiday. Like, you were already getting when it comes on a weekend. Like, I was already taking this day off. Why?
It's still good for my son, though, because being an only child, and when the snow happens over the weekend, when I can actually go out and play in it with him, there's an advantage there during the week. I'm like, I guess go out and play by yourself. What can I do? I'm at work. I don't care that it's snowing. Yeah, working from home kind of changes that a little bit, too.
Yeah.
All right, leading off the news for this week, we had the FA Cup draw happen. So who is Arsenal going to be facing in round 4?
Yes. So 4th round draw will be home to Wigan, which is, again, sort of like Portsmouth. For longtime Arsenal followers like myself may remember the days of Roberto Martinez's Wigan sides. As I recall, if I'm remembering right, Wigan is a town is much more deeply invested in rugby than it is in the football. So they were always a bit of a, I don't want to say out of place, but always felt like a bit of an odd choice. Actually, on recollection, Wigan is one of 2 teams I have actually seen play live in a Premier League game. Huh. They were, of course, at Fulham. Fulham was the other team, but they were Fulham's opposition. So that'll be fun. Anyway, more importantly for us, not only is the game against a League One side, therefore a team lower than Portsmouth, it is also at home, so that's nice. It'll be good. We'll sort of talk about this, and we talk about how tired people are and sort of the constant cycle of games and all of that over and over again. This is part of how we're going to have success, I think, in this cup competition at this stage. Obviously, the Carabao Cup kind of is beyond that, but getting a side. Getting a home game against weaker opposition, and I think it's fair to call a League One team a weaker opposition. They are not the lowest rated team, though. Of course, 6th tier Macclesfield remains. They're home to Brentford, so they got another home game. So good on you, Macclesfield. Let's see how that continues.
I saw some touching stories about these players from Macclesfield returning home to their jobs as like teachers and construction workers as hometown heroes, having defeated Crystal Palace. It's really wild.
I mean, when they say semi-pro, I mean, that's like half those guys have real jobs or have jobs in something other than playing sports, because they're, that's why they're in the 6th division like that. Yeah, so it is fun. It is fun to see those stories. It's great that they got the home game against Crystal Palace, and look at Brentford as well coming in. That's 2 home games. That's a lot. That'll be great for them. And there is a little bit, because in FA Cup games, the gate, that is, the ticket sales are split between the 2 clubs. So there is a benefit sometimes to being a big club. Like, take Wigan, for example. The Emirates is going to sell out or close enough to it, and they're going to get half of that take. Whereas, Macclesfield is basically going to get half of a home sellout for them, which is cool, but,
yeah. Still, yeah, I mean, I guess thinking about it in the long run, and I don't think this is really true, but if for Wigan to play at home against us meant that they continued to the next round, I think still in the long run, they'd end up making more.
I mean, there's also prize money attached to winning rounds. So for them,
okay.
I mean, there's a benefit. There's no downside to it if you're the smaller club. But I say used to be, like, this wasn't until very recently when they had replays. That was one of the big advantages of the replay was you're a smaller club, you hold the big club to a draw on your home field, and then you go to theirs, and then who cares what happens? Because of course you're supposed to lose, and then you get a big pile of money for it anyway. Or you get half that gate and you win.
Right.
You know, so that's something. And I'm not calling for the return of replays. I just don't think in this when would we play it? Like, imagine for a moment Arsenal draw in that Portsmouth game. When would we even play that? We don't have an off week for another couple weeks. We don't have until we get a midweek off. So yeah, I understand why they go away. It frankly makes the two-legged Carabao Cup semifinal seem a little strange in this day and age. But
right, the conversation's going in the opposite direction of kind of putting pressure on the league to take away the two-leg semifinals. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of that originally came from the idea that as a second-tier competition, it was more likely you were going to see deeper runs from lower tier teams because the bigger clubs just weren't going to take it as seriously. So there's some more opportunities there for the smaller clubs to maybe make a deep run. You hit the semifinals, then you're guaranteed a home game. Now, of course, we've seen how seriously so many of the big clubs take it, and of course, the Final Four is the plucky upstarts of Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Newcastle. Like, hey, okay. Maybe that day has passed. But anyway, back to the draw. Yes, Wigan at home in the fourth round. They did announce. Hold on, let me actually grab my calendar real quick because they did announce that game will be on Sunday, February 15th. So a little more than a month from now. A little less
Valentine's
than
Day. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sunday the 15th. Home against Wigan. In the midst of the Olympics, if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, that'll be on Sunday, which makes sense given we have a Thursday game right before it against Brentford. So I think Sunday was we'd have to play that. Which, by the way, that Wigan game would be at the moment our last, or at least our last game before we get a week off, a full week in the middle of February, because we do not have a midweek game. I believe that would be where the Champions League, a round of 32, or not 32, where the playoff round would go. But we'll talk about this a little bit. We're not likely to be there, so thankfully we'll avoid that.
Right. Cool. So in other news, in the broader world of sports and technology, where my heart started before it began getting pulled in the direction of Arsenal and soccer and baseball, and now even this year basketball, there is a major announcement. Something has started on the Apple Vision Pro now. As we've talked about before, I've had one since it launched. I've been an enthusiastic early adopter of it. And the NBA, was specifically the LA Lakers, committed to, I think it's somewhere around like 4 to 6 full streaming spatial games of the LA Lakers. These are all home games for them. And the first one happened last week, and I got a chance to watch it this week. And it was really, really incredible. I mean, to the point where it was a game that I didn't really care about, and I really had trouble turning it off because I just felt like I didn't want to leave the experience. It was so cool. Basically, imagine you're sitting at center courtside. And the game is happening in front of you. You can look to the left. You can look to the right. You follow the action both directions. You can't see for inbounding all the way at the near corners. The field of vision doesn't quite extend that far for the cameras that they're using. It isn't quite 180 degrees, but almost. So if someone were shooting a 3-pointer from the very near corners of the court, you couldn't quite see it. But really, really incredible. And then sometimes they change up the angles a little bit. It's either basically center court or behind one basket or behind the other basket. And that's the main complaint I've been hearing. I don't completely disagree, but I don't really fully agree either, that it's jarring when you're immersed and it's just it's so real, like you're sitting there and then all of a sudden they pluck you up and put you down someplace else and you need to reorient yourself. It is different. It is more jarring than a similar cut would be in regular 2D games like we're all used to watching. It is more jarring than that, and yet I found it didn't really bother me. I was still able to follow what was going on, and it was just really cool. I mean, just like being that close, you hear like comments that the players are making to each other and things just because the mic is so close to them and stuff. It was just really, really cool. I will probably watch at least some of the next ones that come out. So it's weird though, the way they're doing it. There's a special partnership with Spectrum Sports, their local LA coverage of the LA Lakers are the ones doing it. And so you can only stream it live through them, but I have the NBA League Pass, so I can stream the replay of it a day later. The next one's going to be at the beginning of February. So that's something else for you to try the next time we're visiting in person.
Yeah, interesting one.
I really do feel like as more leagues and broadcasters start adopting it, I really feel like the real winning formula is going to be having a few or more different locations that you can pick from and letting the viewer choose where they want to be situated and maybe move around at will if they decide that, I don't want to be at center court anymore. I want to be behind the home team's hoop and then switch to the other side's hoop in the second half. Or for soccer, do you want like your preferred viewpoint where you'd be like way up high, like basically where the camera is now, but fixed, where you can just like kind of follow the action back and forth as it's going on, or behind one of the goals, or maybe like pitch side or whatever it is. Being able to pick like that's the advantage of watching on a device, is you can pick things like that. It's not TV. You don't have to have the broadcaster forcing on you a certain point of view. Like F1 is adopting stuff like that, where you can pick when you're watching a race, do you want to be inside the car of your favorite driver, or do you want to be like following them around the track or things like that? Like the F1 is adopting the technology really better. So yeah,
you'll see some of this tomorrow night. We're recording on Sunday as usual. Tomorrow night in the US is the national championship game of American college football, and they've had this for a bunch of years. They'll have actually, it's not quite different camera angles, but they'll do different broadcasts. They'll have different commentators. They'll have the main one, of course, but they'll have a stats focused one. They may have. They'll do like one each on each channel where it's called by the home team's radio broadcaster. So you get a home team player for it. They used to have one. I hope they're still doing it. It was a coach's one where I remember watching this. It was probably a decade ago at this point, where you had the game on, but you were in there with a room full of like coaches from other teams commenting on sort of random things they were seeing. Which was kind of interesting to sort of see the things they were looking at and thinking about as they're watching different stuff. And of course, they're dropping stories about, especially about the coaches on the other teams and all of that. My favorite, I forget the setup of the game, but basically it was a play. One team was setting up to punt, and immediately they lined up, and right before they snapped the ball, everyone in the room goes, fake punt, fake, they're faking it. And sure enough, it was a fake. And it's kind of one of those, you watch enough of it and you can start to notice those kinds of things just to call the fake, or call the unusual play as it happens. Anyway,
now, how are you saying you switch between those? They're just different channels?
They're just different channels basically on ESPN.
Right. Interesting.
I forget what the Supercast or something is, because they call it the idea of all the different. But as I understand it, they weren't necessarily different cameras. They were more just different commentary,
audio tracks,
for the most part, or different. One was very stats focused, so they're looking at talking about different kinds of things, looking at different kinds of things.
Yeah, it was actually, speaking of NCAA, I didn't realize one of our local colleges, Marist, I didn't know that they were a D1 school. I found that out recently because my son's school, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and he's a 3rd grader now, they took a field trip to see the Marist women play. And I didn't realize until I looked them up that, oh yeah, this is on ESPN because it's D1. And I was actually able, we watched it and I was able to find him in the crowd during a free throw shot. Yeah, I paused it and he's like, oh, there I am. There's my teacher. And then he was like pointing out everybody who he saw. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they at this point, they all have contracts with most of them with ESPN. There's a few that do a few other networks, but yeah, you can pretty much watch anything these days. It's a wild world we live in.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned in the notes here there's some article or I guess video talking about how own goals or goal ownership is determined in the Premier League.
Right. So we'll include the link so everyone can see it because, the video explains everything in about 45 seconds. But basically, there's the basic rule about how it's determined, a shot on goal, even if it's on goal but deflects anyway, it's a goal by the shooter. If it's probably not going to go on goal but deflects in otherwise, that's an own goal based on the defender. And generally, that's pretty easy to determine. But there is apparently a panel with a 3-person panel with one, not a referee, someone from PGMOL, and then 2 football experts who are all kept anonymous, and they review and make decisions about what counts and what if those things have to change. They pointed out Opta, who does a lot of statistics, is the one who officially makes the determinations, but they're allowed to review and make changes on those. And apparently there's no timetable or time limit on any change they want to make, which is fascinating. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting, it's 45 seconds out of your day. It's kind of an interesting little bit. I'm sort of fascinated by those little bits of like how those things get determined.
Sure.
Because you see that a lot in baseball where they have, every stadium has an official scorer. And, clubs are notorious for, different teams are notorious for like different kinds of benefits given to the home team in terms of scoring. Nothing that actually affects the result on the
final score. Right.
But it kind of how it gets recorded.
Interesting.
Hits and errors being the most famous.
Sure. Interesting. It's funny that they would go to such lengths that you'd have like a whole panel dedicated to it when it ultimately doesn't matter. Like the fact that it's a goal is all that really matters, but it's kind of funny they'd go to such lengths of having multiple people involved in making the decision.
They do make it sound very secretive and all that. I suspect this isn't, at these days it's probably a quick Zoom call, they watch the video, they get a few replays and then, because I could see it in terms of, player contracts, the
worth of a player, I guess.
Yeah,
it affects their stats.
Right. Yeah. It's very much an individual thing. And it's not as if I don't believe there's any level of tiebreaker that subtract own goals and now what's your goal difference?
That was where my mind went. Yeah, like when you're calculating a player's total number of goals, do you subtract the own goals off? Yeah.
Yeah. You would obviously because they don't count. But I could see, a player losing a goal upon review like that. I could see that being an interesting, point of contention, depending on the potential financial ramifications for that, especially with goals.
That reminds me a little bit of that one red card given to Miles Lewis-Scully last season that was pulled back, I think if I'm remembering right, after he'd already served his suspension for it, or at least part of his suspension, I think, right?
No. So that one he had, and that was determined very quickly by PGMOL because of the sort of timely nature of it. What he had served was he was kicked out of the game.
Of that one match,
so we had to play the rest of the game without him. Now because we appealed and they reviewed and very quickly he was allowed to come back and play in the next game because, you shouldn't have gotten it. That was the wrong decision to give him a red card. So there's no suspension there. And then somewhere in that stretch, he got himself a deserved red card and definitely got in trouble for that. So kind of all washes out in the end, I guess. Right. But
yeah. Last week, we talked about Mo Salah not playing against us for Liverpool because he was participating in the African Cup of Nations, which it looks like has come to a conclusion.
It did. in a game that, I'm going to be honest, sounds like it was vastly more interesting than either of ours this week. I shouldn't say that. The Chelsea game, certainly more entertaining than the Forest game yesterday. So I'm trying to see if I can make this quick. So late in the second half, Senegal scored a goal that was pulled back because of a foul. Now, I've only seen one or two replays, and I haven't studied it quickly. Yeah, I can see why he called the foul, and the referee blows the whistle before he takes the shot. Yeah, you lose a goal that way. Tough. Obviously, it's late in the final. A few minutes later, on the other end, Morocco is awarded a penalty based on contact within the box during a corner. I have only seen highlight videos, so I'm going to be very careful about how I sort of word this. And again, we will talk about penalty decisions and foul decisions in the broader context of the whole match. The Senegalese player definitely gets his arms around him and he goes down, and the Moroccan player goes to ground. Was he maybe too easy? Maybe, did it really interfere as much with the play? I don't know. But you're kind of in the position where you're putting yourself in a position where the referee can make a call, and he did. Senegal was furious about these two calls. And look, Morocco was the host country for the Cup of Nations. Late controversial calls to the benefit of the host nation is the kind of thing that gets people's radar up. Senegal, to show their displeasure, left the field and walked off. After apparently about 10 to 15 minutes, eventually they were persuaded to come back on. A few more conversations ensued before the Moroccan player finally takes the penalty. He tries a panenka, and the keeper just kind of stood there and took it and caught it. This would have been, This would have won the cup. This was it. This was all of it. They go to extra time, 0-0. Senegal scores early in the extra time and then hangs on. So Senegal are the champions of Africa. Congratulations to the Lions of Teranga. And disappointing one for the Atlas Lions of Morocco, who have otherwise been on a pretty good run internationally in the last World Cup, the Olympics, hosting and then going to the final in AFCON. But Senegal comes away the winner. So it sounds like it was a controversial one.
Yeah, wow, crazy. That has no bearing on World Cup qualification. They're both already qualified and going to be in the World Cup.
Correct. They're both there. Yeah. We'll see them both this summer. We'll see them in the U.S. this summer during the World Cup. Right. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, let's talk about the Chelsea match from this week. So the final score was 2-3. It's not exactly necessarily what it felt like it should have been by the end. We had a bunch of close calls that didn't materialize. But to begin with, I noticed that we did play a pretty strong lineup for the EFL Cup against them.
We did, and I think it says a lot. Given this kind of stretch of games, we talked a little bit about all of the rotation we saw for the Portsmouth game. I think other than Kepa getting a second consecutive start, which made sense, I think, in the context of what was coming up over the next couple of games. We rolled out a top-tier lineup, and honestly, we played like it. I thought we were really good in this game. You talked about the score in the game. I saw the comments somewhere, and I kind of agree. This was a 3-2 game that felt like it should have been 4-1. It felt like we left a few opportunities on the table, and some of what we conceded was not what you want. I'd have been much happier with 3-2 if this was the days of away goals still being the tiebreaker, but that has since disappeared. So, we basically we're up one. We're up one. That's it. That's all that matters. Going home in the second leg. But overall, I thought there was a lot to be excited about in this one. Do you disagree?
Yeah, no, yes, I was really, really crushed with their second goal. I was really feeling like we were going to go into the second leg up a net of 2, not 1, and that would have all but assured our advancement into the final. But I still feel good about going in with the one goal lead, but 2 would have been better.
It would have been. It was the first game with Liam Rossinier, I think is how they pronounced it. It was the first home game for him as Chelsea manager.
Right.
I don't know. I come away from that thinking they still have, I think, a fair amount of work to do. Chelsea does. They're obviously talented, but I think there's a lot of problems there that weren't Enzo Maresca's doing. I think there's a lot in there as far as stuff that wasn't his fault in terms of his being let go and their struggles. And I think Rossinior's got his work cut out for him. I do think it's fascinating that Chelsea will feel pretty good about where they stand, having lost at home another game against Arsenal that they didn't win. So I don't quite know what to make of that. But overall, I think this was one of those, we've talked about how goals change games, especially early goals, and they're 7 minutes in. Ben White, set piece again.
Yeah, one of those Declan Rice corners. Love the guy. He's so dependable with those.
Yeah, and good to see Ben White back. He's been doing Ben White things the last couple of games, which is nice to see.
Yeah, but no, what a textbook header though to seal that. That was beautiful. And
true to form, the Chelsea players were whining about contact on the keeper when, frankly, it's Sanchez and he just needs to be stronger there. I'm sorry, there's nothing there. Just stop.
No, it really doesn't look like it.
And then really just on the other side of halftime, I think we can, I know you'll talk about this more a little later, but Ben White again, he gets a quick throw in. A quick throw. I mean, how often have we talked about the throw-ins taking so long? Picks it up, rifles it in. And
Gyökeres is looking around like, whoa, and like all of a sudden he's on the back foot trying to chase down Saka.
Which you can always tell because you can see his hair just flying about in every which way.
Right.
But yeah, White to Saka back to White. White slides it across. Sanchez is going to want that one back. And then there's Victor Gyökeres on the doorstep, and it's 2-0. And
Yeah, I did notice it was not a prolonged goal celebration. I feel like he has gained, if nothing else, some humility over the course of the season. But yeah, it was he was finally at the right place at the right time. I think that's the right time has been the main problem for him. He's very often in the right place, but just a step behind where he needs to be. And that was still the case a lot in the Chelsea and Forest matches. There were still additional other goals that he could have scored had he just had his timing been more in sync with the rest of his team. But
yeah, we'll save the larger Gyökeres discussion for the Forest game. But here it's nice to see him come good. And again, like we said, that's what you want to do. You want to be that kind of fox in the box, or I think Arscast they referred to him as an ox in the box, because he's not a small man. Right. But just that's kind of what you do. Get those dirty goals. And that was a dirty one. And I mean, that's Sanchez. That's two goals that if you're Chelsea and Sanchez, you just got to think, man, what do you do with that? That's just poor play on his part.
Mm-hmm. And I don't remember if it was right before or right after that goal. I feel like it was probably right after that they subbed in Alejandro Garnacho, who we saw in the last match against Chelsea that we played in the league. And he came from Manchester United, I think, right? If I'm remembering that right.
Yeah, he was with United. Seems like he had a bit of a falling out with management, other players. They're kind of a mess up there. But yeah, left this summer, joined with Chelsea in August, and has been there with them. I'm not going to pretend I know how he's doing. I don't really care. He does seem like a perfectly Chelsea player, in which is not necessarily a compliment. But there he was. We made it 2-0, which was good because then they got one back a little bit later.
Yeah, pretty quickly after he came on, he made an immediate impact, and that was frustrating. He was just like left there just to pound it in right at the edge of the 6-yard box.
Yeah, I mean that's one we talked briefly about Sanchez. I think we could throw this one, I guess, from your perspective on Kepa. I guess I'm of two minds. That on the one hand, in a lot of ways, he's hung out to dry on that one. That shouldn't even be an opportunity. It's a bad giveaway, some poor clearance attempts, and you're left with with Garnacho, in a dangerous position, and he buries it. But even then, I still feel like on the shot, Kepa's got to do better with that, doesn't he?
Yeah, he didn't make himself big enough quickly enough. He kind of stuck out his leg a little bit, but he didn't convince Garnacho that he shouldn't take the shot, or that he had to angle it in a way that leads to it not going in. Like, yeah, he could have done better. And I didn't really see that much until I was watching the replays again today, prepping for the show. But yeah, it wasn't overall, he had some good saves in the match too. It's not to put him down on the day. I think overall he had another good outing. It was just, that one at least, he'll want that back.
Yeah. But it's okay because we got it back ourselves a few minutes later. This was end-to-end stuff. There were 5 goals in this game. Kind of end-to-end. Second half in particular opened up a lot. Mm-hmm. And a lot of space there leads to Zubimendi with a great finish. A lot of good passing and assist from Gyökeres. I did see some man of the match shouts for him after this one with a goal and assist, but this one was Zubimendi with a great finish and 3-1. And he kind of felt at that point, I don't know. To me, it felt a little bit like it was over at that point. Like we had the tie was done and dusted. I don't know.
Yeah, basically. And, there's enough time left that you felt pretty comfortable they weren't going to get 2 more goals. Of course, it turned out there was definitely time for 1 more.
Yeah. And again, another one that I think we just kind of want back. The corner goes in and just no one gets to it until he gets to Garnacho and he puts it in. And, yeah,
you have to wonder. So I know we always credit Nico Jover with how well Arsenal does at scoring from set pieces. Mm-hmm. Do you know, is it also part of the set piece coach's goal, or I guess area of focus, to also coach them in defending set pieces too? I would think that's probably part of it.
I'll be honest, I don't know, because I think so much what the set piece coach does is sort of help you determine what you are going to do with the set piece, right? With the ball, because it's about ball placement and player movement and all of that. So I don't know. My suspicion is not, because we actually had a fairly poor record defending against set pieces last year. We actually gave up quite a few goals from those positions. And yet, Jover continued to get credit, of course, for all the corners and set piece goals we did score, which leads me to think that that's not really part of his remit. That's not really something he works on. I could be totally wrong about that. What you say makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, defending set pieces is a part of set pieces, isn't it? But I don't know. My suspicion, based on the way it gets talked about, is that's not the case. But I admit I don't know about that. And overall, I think we've done well this season with those. But obviously, this one not so great. Not so great.
Yeah, but overall, there's those couple slips, but I think we also had a few shots that could have scored but didn't. There was that one that Sanchez just barely got a fingertip to and pushed clear that almost would have gone in, and it was a strong performance. I don't feel bad about how it went, and to be up 1-0 essentially when we come home for the second leg, it's a good place to be in.
Yeah, of course, this is a 2-leg stage, so obviously the total goals matters. Yes, it would have been better if it was 3-1 or 2-0, or obviously 4-1 would have been even better. But we're kind of in the position now where Chelsea, who has, again, not beaten us twice at home this season, draw in the league and then this loss here, now has to come to the Emirates and win.
Right.
And as we saw I'm pretty sure it's like the last round with Palace, where if they do win by a goal, it goes straight to penalties. I'm pretty sure there isn't extra time.
Oh, okay.
There may be in the final, but I'm not. Don't hold me to that, 'cause I'm not sure. But okay. But I guess I also look at Chelsea, and I mentioned this earlier. Like, they are rather dislikable, aren't they?
Yeah, and I guess maybe a little bit more likable with Caicedo already being out of the competition due to a red card. I remember not liking him particularly when we played against him in the league until he was sent off and gave us that advantage that we didn't quite take enough advantage of. But
but it's just, and you'll hear this too, by the way, because Cole Palmer was out, Caicedo is out, and there's one other player who I'm just totally blanking on his name, and it's going to annoy me. And they're key players of their lineup that we're missing, but also, I'm sorry. I look at Chelsea and I see a rather immature team. They look, some of the comparison was to where we were a couple of years ago. They let their emotions get the better of them. You saw the little dust up they had there right after the final whistle. I forget who it was. Somebody tried to shove Zubimendi. Zubimendi just laughs at him. I'm sorry. This is Chelsea. Again, I think I can't speak to Maresca as a day in day out manager. I don't know. Obviously, I don't really follow Chelsea, but I can't believe he's only the problem there. They've got a lot of young players who don't really know. It's just hard to. I don't think they're quite up to it yet, and I think they're still a bit over emotional. I think they're still a little too independent. They're still working through some of the problems they had of that. Like they aren't the completely overstuffed locker room that they were a couple seasons ago, but still not. I just don't think they still quite know yet who they are or what they're trying to do, and I just have a hard time believing that group is going to come into the Emirates, a place where we have not lost all season, and somehow win. I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So speaking of Caicedo not being in this match because of a card, that got me wondering when I heard that, how does card accumulation work with the cup competitions? Because I know we generally talk about, if you get a red card, let's say toward the end of a Champions League season, it'll carry over into the next season or things like that. But this is within the auspices of the English FA. How does it work between the two cup competitions and in the Premier League? If you get a yellow card accumulation suspension, could that be served in a cup match, or would that have to be the next Premier League match? How does that work?
So card accumulation, which is typically deals with yellow cards, right? It's like if you get 10 yellow cards before the end of the first half of the season, you're suspended a game. Those are only Premier League, done in the Premier League. And I don't know what the accumulation rules, if there are any for the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. I don't think so, because typically the FA Cup, if Arsenal were to play in the final of the FA Cup, they play 5 games.
Yeah,
like that's not really enough to accumulate, cards. Short of like a 3 yellows means a suspension thing. I don't know that's the case. However, suspensions accrued, particularly as a result of red cards, are actually carried over. So Caicedo's card actually came in a Premier League game. That's why he was out.
Right. Okay.
Maybe it was the FA Cup game. I don't remember. But either way, the fact is it was another game within that. Now, he would still be serving that. He's still serving that suspension, as opposed to, say, we have European games this week. Obviously, that's a completely different set of competition. And so we've talked about this, right? When a player gets I think Calafiori got himself picked up a suspension in the league one week. Like, well, I guess he's going to go 90 in Europe this week because we're not going to use him in the Premier League. But yeah, so there is some sense in terms of the suspensions are done consistent, they're used across the competitions, but in terms of accumulating cards, no, they are not.
Okay. And one other kind of rules-based question I had is, as you mentioned, during that corner kick, they were crying foul against, I don't know who it was, but they said someone fouled Sanchez. What is the standard for fouling a keeper during a corner kick? Because I do feel like I've seen the whistle blown before the ball is kicked, typically, or at least before anything actually happens from it while it's midair or something. And I've seen play stop because of that. But what are they looking for? What is too much contact on the keeper? Because they're all packed in pretty close. There's no matter what, there's going to be some contact.
Right. And we talked about their keeper, their Sanchez. We talked about Raya, how good he is at that, and a few times when he hasn't been, in terms of being physically strong and basically forcing yourself into positions. As an offensive player, you have the right to be in position, to establish yourself, to make a play on the ball. But the keeper generally gets a little bit more leeway. If the referee feels that you're making a legitimate play on the ball, generally speaking, they'll let that go. Mm-hmm. Now, typically when you see calls made, there's bumping and pushing. Sometimes there's a lot of grabbing. Ben White once got a warning because he was holding the keeper's hand.
I remember that. Yeah.
And the most Ben White foul possible.
Yeah.
So
master of the dark arts that he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it basically is. I think as long as the referee feels that you're making an effort on the ball, right, or you're making what could be deemed as you're actually trying to position yourself offensively. Now, are there plenty of occasions where guys look like they're playing the ball when they're obviously not. Yes, we know those cases too, but as long as what you're doing could be construed as making a play on the ball, there's generally a lot of leeway there. That being said, the keepers also get a little bit more leeway. Like, a defender can't fling himself into an attacking player, whereas a keeper can go for it, and he's grabbing the ball, punching the ball, and generally he gets away with a lot of that too. So he gets a lot more leeway within that space.
Yeah, and also protected too sometimes when he's going for the ball, depending on the nature of how the tackle is, when he's clearly already on his way to it. I know there's sometimes some deference there. Like, okay, look, the keeper is like inches away from getting his hand on the ball and you kicked him in the face. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this weekend, we headed to Nottingham Forest. This match happened yesterday as we record our second consecutive scoreless draw in the league. That's not a trend I'm super enthused about.
No, and it is kind of frustrating that the two teams, I mean, Liverpool, the Liverpool one in some ways was frustrating because, of course, we're now a loss and a draw against Liverpool this year, which is annoying. With Forest, though, it is a loss. City Ground it's definitely been a bit of a boogeyman, but definitely it's been a tough place for us. We've dropped a lot of games there, or dropped a lot of points there over the last few years. They knocked us out of the FA Cup there, and back when they were still in the Championship. Like, that's always been a place we struggle when we talk about like comparing results from years past. Away to Forest is one of those where we just seem to drop points, which is again frustrating. And I have to say, we talked a little bit about Chelsea and how strong the lineup was. It was basically a top, first choice lineup, with the exception of Kepa in goal. Raya was in goal for this one, but we definitely made some changes in terms of the front line. Saka sat and Trossard sat for Martinelli and Noni Madueke. And I mean, it just didn't work, did it?
No, I mean, for one thing, I guess I would like to know what is the status of Calafiori or anybody else. Like, I guess we know Miles Lewis-Skelly is healthy, but not playing for other reasons. But is Calafiori going to be back anytime soon? Do we have any update on that?
At some point, he'll be back. I will say there was a comment. Christian Mosquera did make the bench in this one, which was
I didn't notice that. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so I presumably Calafiori will come back soon, soon-ish. I don't know I don't recall hearing a timetable particularly on him at the moment or recently. So obviously, that would be good. I mean, I do feel like we're kind of like Timber's not bad, but Timber's definitely better at right back than he is at left. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a little tough to see there. But I guess I look at this and say Timber isn't the problem there on the left. I thought Martinelli was okay. I thought Madueke had a couple of good moments and also a lot of not good moments. And frankly,
that corner kick, I called him out as having really good corner kicks last week. And this week, that one, if it was just another couple feet, so it cleared the near post, Martinelli was there. That would have been a strong opening goal.
It could have been, but he doesn't even reach the first post. Yeah, it was just, I think it's interesting because it says a little bit about where this one stands in the pecking order. Again, we've talked about the difficulties of the travel, 4 consecutive games in different competitions, in this constant stretch, basically since Christmas, of 2 games a week. It's going to be another month. Basically, we're going to have 2 months of 2 games a week like this. I mean, we played in midweek and Forest didn't. So I think, it's interesting to see the rotation. Obviously, what it says about how important the game in Milan is on Tuesday, knowing that Saka was not going to be starting in that one. He's, of course, sort of the key piece there. But then again, Rice and Odegaard started. We're going to go. I assume the hope wasn't that they'd go 90, and ultimately Odegaard didn't. But yeah, I think there was a sense that this was a game. This was a game we were going to put a little bit less stock into than the Cup semifinal with Chelsea, and then the Champions League game, which, in the grand scheme of things, I get. We sort of talked about how do you balance those different competitions and what's important and what isn't. the league, the League Cup, the Carabao Cup now being a semifinal. The trophy is close enough. You can see it.
Yeah.
Whereas this is here in the Premier League, you're kind of in that slog of games, and we'll talk about the result a little bit as well. But yeah, this one, it's tough because this one just didn't really work to the tune of 0 shots on goal in the first half.
Yeah, it's not great. Things definitely picked up once we went to triple sub midway into the second half. That was, to me, where things all of a sudden we had more danger. We showed more danger at that point.
Yeah.
But speaking of the lineup rotation, though, so how much of it is the importance of the competition overall, and how much of it is the particular matches in the competition? Like if we were playing Manchester City in the league yesterday instead of Nottingham Forest, does he still make the same decisions, or is it more like, well, Forest is in 17th, like we can probably get by with resting a couple of these players we'd rather have in better shape, fewer minutes on their legs going into the Milan match?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, like the fact they're playing Forest as opposed to looking to the Europe game. What if the game this Tuesday wasn't Inter Milan but was Kairat? It was home to Athletic Bilbao, and we played away there, but just hypothetically.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that plays into it as well. The fact that Inter Milan, we'll talk about this more towards the end, right? But it's a pot one team. It's a big away game. They beat us last year, which you can tell, no one was really thrilled about. Like those things play into that as well. Again, cup semifinal, it's Chelsea, it's a derby, it's Forest. It's a way to Forest, that's a game you're going to feel like you should be able to win with a rotated lineup. And even one, honestly, I guess that's kind of the interesting thing. Our midfield, I mean, Rice, Odegaard, Zubimendi is pretty much our first choice midfield. Yeah. We made the rotations up top. And then, we're still kind of working, not makeshift. Obviously, we had Saliba and Gabriel, but Ben White and Timber, it can work. But it's not what you prefer, but that's not because that was more injuries, right? Obviously, if Hincapié or Calafiori is healthy, they're playing on the left, Timber's playing on the right.
Yeah,
but we don't get that, so we're kind of moving. We're kind of moving those pieces around, and this was one. I mean, I noticed it a lot more, I think, on the right hand side, because we know about the successful interplay that Odegaard, White, and Saka had. This was 2 years ago now. Obviously, it's been 2 years. Ben White's coming off major injuries. He wasn't. He and Madueke didn't work quite the same way. He's not making the overlapping runs. Now, I don't know how much of that is White, how much of that is Madueke, who is, I think he's faster than Saka. But also kind of uses that to dribble himself into trouble rather than out of trouble, which he can do as well. But I wonder if that makes him a little more difficult to overlap on that side. White is certainly not slow, but different speeds and different, still reading each other as well. But that one didn't work. Martinelli, honestly, Odegaard, we've said a lot of nice things about Odegaard the last couple of weeks. He was kind of invisible in this one, honestly, which is unfortunate in a game where we really need to kind of pick the lock of a packed team, and that's kind of what he's supposed to be able to do, and he just didn't.
Yeah, no, they shut us out of the box pretty much most of the time. Yeah, it was
certainly
tricky.
in the first half. And,
yeah,
and it makes it all the more frustrating when you get dangerous balls. I mean, really, the one, of course, is Martinelli's sliding across that just missed the post.
Yeah.
You also have Gyökeres almost breaking past Murillo and basically getting hauled back when he should have had a breakaway.
Frustrating. Yeah. I mean, how much of that is just like his build and he just can't move any faster?
It's an interesting one because he got away with a lot in Portugal by basically bullying some of their defenders. He's we talk about he's a large guy. He's a strong guy. You don't do that as well in the Premier League. And I wonder, I'd be interested to, I don't know how we determine this, but I wonder how much of that is, that's the way Premier League defenders are trying to play him. They're trying to body him up and push him around and force him to be more physical in what is a more physical league. And how much of that is his own choice? He's trying to run off the defenders, and so he's using his physicality but winds up getting kind of tangled up with them. I mean, I think we're kind of dancing around it here. Let's just sort of say it outright. This is the part of the show where we have to talk about Gyökeres, don't we?
Yeah, it's been frustrating because, like, you know, he entered the club with high expectations over the summer. We're like, okay, this is the striker we've been waiting, 2 years for? Like, ever since Jesus got injured, really, is when the calls started for it. And we're like, okay, this is who Arteta thinks it's going to be. And, you know, early on, we're like, okay, well, of course he's not going to score like right away. We'll give him a little bit. And then, you know, he'd have a few goals here and there. And like, okay, he's heating up. And then he'd cool off. And then he'd start heating up again. Yeah, but it never really produced a meaningful streak. Like, not to the point where we'd feel like I don't feel the same way at this point about Jesus or Marino when we have them in that center forward position. It's like they're always close, but it's like there's more belief. They have more of a track record to draw from, where we feel like, okay, well, yeah, that was good play. They'll get it next time. Whereas I don't have that confidence with Gyökeres at this point.
Well, I don't think he has that confidence either. I mean, really, if you want to think about it, this is a game based on the way it was being played out. Maybe Marino should start up top. You know, that was one of those that was just kind of frustrating, because how many times with Gyökeres did we see him to be a step behind where he wanted to be, or where someone wanted to be, and making a run? And we talked a lot. He does a lot about drawing defenders, and you know, he certainly finished off a couple of chances as well. But I hate terms like bust, you know, because you put so much into this. The guy is working hard, and he is doing a lot of little things, but at the same, and you know, he's here for 5 years, so like he's got a 5-year contract. So I'm not, you know, there's plenty of gut players who don't really come good until that second season, or even later in the first. But we're now halfway through the season. I know everyone said, oh, he didn't get a training camp. Like, we're halfway through the season, guys. I'm sorry, that's just not an excuse anymore. And yeah, it's frustrating. With Havertz hopefully back soon, Jesus coming back. I mean, although I don't know, I wasn't super impressed with Jesus in this game either. I mean, I think honestly, Saka was probably the most dangerous player we had in this game. I thought he had a couple of good plays, you know, created some opportunities when he came in. But ultimately, Sels made a couple of saves late, and that was, you know, 1 or 2 saves late. And otherwise, a lot of our possession didn't turn into chances. And, you know, in the end, that was effectively all she wrote, 0-0, right?
Yeah. Sels really frustrated me. It's those things where, like, you know, you're expecting that we're going to score, because we, you know, Liverpool last week aside, we generally have been winning most of our games this season. It's like you just think, oh, this is it, and then he leaps and makes an incredible save, and like, and then it happens again for another one, and it's like, okay, I guess I can see now why he shared the Golden Glove with Raya last season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reminder of that, of course. But I think also it's fair to say, like, we got to do a better job putting shots on goal. Like, I want to be careful how I talk about this, because I know I'm a little more in the discourse than you are, which is probably to my detriment. But I think we're well past the point where I think every game needs to be a referendum on, can Arsenal win the league? Like, we're 7 points clear at the top of the table. Of course we could win the league. And yes, it is very frustrating. And there are elements of this game that reveal weaknesses in the team that make me go, you know, that's what's frustrating. That's what's kind of like, it feels like it doesn't have to be this hard. It shouldn't be this difficult. At the same time, like, we're 7 points clear at the top of the table. Yes, we should have won this game. But, you know, I think I'm still kind of where I am when we started the like, sort of throughout the rest of the holidays. If we continue to play this way, we're largely going to be fine. But it does make it frustrating when these sorts of games happen. And of course, we don't score, which, by the way, is only the 3rd game this season where we did not score a goal. Like, you know,
That's not not terrible.
Yeah, right. Again, it feels like it should be more. It feels like we should play better. I mean, we should play better. At the same time, Forest had 0 shots on goal. Like they're just
both halves.
for the whole game. The whole game, they had no shots on goal. Again, I'm frustrated. It's an annoying game. I think it's also the kind of game that if we actually win something in May, we're not even going to remember this one happened. Like this was a hard one. We spent more time talking about the African Cup of Nations final, a game neither of us watched, than this game. Right? Yeah. It's frustrating. I think it's fair to ask questions about Gyökeres. I think it's fair to think a little bit about the substitution patterns as well. I'm trying to think what would have, sort of like we were in the Liverpool game, like what decision could we have made? Because Eze came on, and I want him to come good, but he's another guy that it just feels like he's kind of lost where he is at the time being. And not that he can't find it, not that he won't do good things for us this season or going forward. But Timber and White were okay as defenders. Gabriel and Saliba did Gabriel and Saliba things on defense. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, before we leave this match, there's one other kind of coda at the end. Like the match was almost over, and then all of a sudden, my ears perked up when I heard, "What? VAR? Penalty? Handball? What?" And they start showing the VAR replay of these two Forest players like on top of each other at the byline, one of whose arm was like jutted out at a weird angle, stopping the ball basically from going over the byline, which would have been a corner kick for us had that happened. But then there was no call, even though the VAR seemed to very clearly show that there should have been one. What happened there?
Yeah, so from what I saw, the ball hit Ola Aina, I think is how they pronounce it, hit him in the arm. I don't want to overcook this one too much because it would have been a very harsh penalty. I think, if you play the standard of what if that call had gone the other way, right? If we had been called for a penalty, I think we'd have all been very bothered. In a sense, the contact happens in part because he kind of gets pushed by his own man. They're both going away. They're going away from goal, so it's not as if it's an attack. On the other hand, how many times have we seen ourselves picked up by the letter of the law? His arms not in his body. It hits the part of it doesn't hit that gray area. Let's put it this way: if they had called it, Forrest really couldn't have complained. It's frustrating. It's not so much frustrating there, but it's kind of frustrating that we're in the position where we're arguing about whether or not. Yeah, we're arguing about whether or not we should have gotten that call, and that's kind of I will say this too. I think if that same play happens on Tuesday in the Inter game, that is a penalty because we've seen how things get officiated differently in Europe than they do in England. So make of that what you will. But I don't, because I know it was brought up. Arteta mentioned it in his post-game press conference. I'm not. I don't want to go begging for penalties like that. That was not. I think we'd be pretty mad if that had gone the other way, and so I can't be too mad that we didn't pick that up there, especially given our performance largely didn't merit that. I would, of course, have taken it, but
So this week we played against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, and we played against Nott'm Forest in the league. Who was your player of the match or player of the week?
I'm going to go across the two games with Bukayo Saka. I thought I mentioned this against Forest, I thought he was probably the most dangerous player on the field, creating a lot of opportunities after coming off the bench, especially noteworthy in a game where we didn't do that at all before he came on. And then I think particularly throwing on back to the Chelsea game, I thought he was, as usual, causing Cucurella all sorts of problems. As usual, the only thing Cucurella can do is just kick him all game, which of course he did. But Saka, as usual, battles through that, created opportunities. To me, he was one of the more dangerous players on both sides, and I think you saw as well. To me, this week was especially the Forest game is a pretty good illustration of, just in case anyone was wondering. I don't think anybody was, but just in case you're wondering, this is why he starts and Madueke doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's tough. I feel like the Forest game almost didn't factor into my decision making. No one really looked that good to me in it. It didn't really sway me one way or another. Looking at the Chelsea match, I went back and forth a little bit. A big part of me wanted to pick Martin Zubimendi. I feel like he's kind of overdue. Like he never quite pushes over into being the biggest player of the match who I would want to pick any given week, but on a rotational basis, I kind of want to pick him. And this week he scored a goal. It's a good week to consider that. But then when watching the replays, I ultimately ended up landing on Ben White. Just the 2 goal involvements that he had were so nice. Like the header to open up the scoring early in the match against Chelsea was super valuable. He was in the right place, did the right thing, headed the goal in the right direction, had the ball in the right direction, toward the other team's goal. I don't know why I can't let that go. But I don't know. Fixated on that, but
wow, okay.
I don't know.
Said it.
I know. For some reason, it just made a very strong impression on me when he did that a season or 2 ago. Now I don't remember when that was, but no. And then the second goal, where he had kind of 2 contributions to it, where, as you mentioned, he made the really fast throw in that got the ball moving way up the field, way down to Saka, who was waiting for it, and then tracked forward so quickly that he overtook Saka with the overlapping runs you were talking about in order to receive a pass from Saka. Then he makes that cross, which itself almost could have gotten deflected in by Sanchez to the goal, but Gyökeres was there to tap it in and complete it. But it just brilliant play from him, like really, really valuable play. And, obviously our defense did well both games. Overall we had the brief lapses with Garnacho, but overall held them off from any serious threats most of the time and the entire time against Forest, if I'm taking that match into account. But yeah, no, Ben White for me this week.
That's fair. I did think he was really good. Obviously a goal and assist as well. We talked about Gyökeres playing well in that game. So did White. My concern of him and Timber playing is more Timber on the left, because he doesn't quite do, and we both like Yuri and Timber, but also I think playing on the left side isn't the best place for him, and I think you lose something there with him playing that position for us. But contra to that, Ben White played on the right. I agree. I thought he was pretty solid. Obviously, there was some difficulty in terms of his interplay with Madueke. I think that seemed to, but he started to come into it. It got better as the game went along, but it still seemed like there's a little bit of working out. But I think the Chelsea performance as well, where he was doing Ben White things, which is it's nice to see that again after missing it for so long.
And who knows, give them enough time on the pitch with Madueke, they may work that stuff out and kind of gel a little bit better too. You never know.
Yeah, but at this point in the season, I don't really. Well, I shouldn't say this point of the season. It's still mid-January, but I don't want that much Madueke on the pitch, mostly because it means Saka's not playing, and that's
yeah. Well, I'm mainly thinking the matches where we don't necessarily, like when we're playing Wigan, right? Let Ben White and Madueke work their things out against Wigan, right?
It's a long way to Wigan, though.
All right, let's talk the Premier League table. So this week we dropped points, but City dropped more.
Yes, City decided to lose to Manchester United and their interim manager, Michael Carrick. In addition to that, we should point out all 4 of the top 4 dropped points. Liverpool, a draw against Burnley, and then Villa losing to Everton. Which is, I know that's some of the frustration coming out of this game, right? That this was a game that we really felt like with the Forest game, it's because City had lost earlier in the day on Saturday. This is a game like we could have opened this up to a 9-point edge, and instead we're left with only 7. Only 7. Yes, I understand the missed opportunity. The one thing I'll say is I'll just keep my position. I don't believe Villa will be a contender at the end of the season. And I look at City, and again, since they were back in the title race, they've had 3 draws and a loss in the league. Their one win in that stretch was Exeter City, and they won 10 goals in the FA Cup against Exeter City. Like, come on, I think as frustrated as I am as our performance, there's a long way to go in this season. Nothing is over yet, but I still feel like we're in a very strong position, advantageous position. Yes, I'd like it to be more, but I think once we get through the worst of this stretch in about a month, I think we'll if we can hit our stride, then after that, I think we'll be okay. But.
And I think that 1 point that we picked up on City could end up being significant, though. We've seen that they've been close to us on goal difference to the point where, if we at some point end up losing a couple and they win a couple that we don't, 6 points clear means they could draw ahead of us on tiebreakers, whereas 7 points clear, they would need that like additional draw or victory where we don't get one, So I think that could be a significant point.
Could be. I mean, at this point in the back half of the season, if City were to win every game they have left, we would still need to lose at least 2 games in that stretch. Now, we could do that. Obviously, there's still difficult games remaining. We still have City to play. There's still a lot we could say that. But right now, we're going to be top of the table at least through match day 24. We have a 3-game lead, essentially a 3-game lead. Or 2-game lead on top of the table, and it's like it as long as we can keep them at arm's length, we'll find some wins. If we keep drawing games, it'll be a problem. But I don't think that's what this team is.
No. So meanwhile, in the Champions League, as we're set to have our next entry against Inter next week, remind us what that's looking like.
Well, there we are also top of the table. Best team in Europe, unbeaten in 6. I would say no points dropped at all. Top of the table. So we have 18 points. We have all but clinched our spot in the round of 16, which would be a bye out of the knockout phase, the next round, which like we had last season, which would be good. Inter Milan away is a tough one. We also play Kairat at home to close that out. So I feel pretty good about us picking up a win. I think our chances are pretty good at finishing at the top. And so, we're doing okay in Europe.
Yeah. When it's come up recently with some people I've been talking to about who don't really follow soccer in general or the Premier League specifically, and they're like, so tell me about Arsenal. Who are they? Like, how are they as a club? I mean, I'm pretty much telling people it's pretty inarguable. We're the best team in the world at this point in time. I mean, it's hard to make a case otherwise. Who's better than us right now?
Over the course of the season, by record, yeah. But, it's going to feel hot. You don't win a trophy in January.
Right.
But you can win one in March with the Carabao Cup. So just throw that out there. But yeah, you don't win trophies in January. But right now, we're on top of everything. So.
Yeah. And, if you're talking about the specific competitions and how well we're doing in them, I mean, being completely unbeaten and I think without even a draw at this point still in the Champions League, we won every single Champions League match. The Champions League are the best teams in Europe. To me, Europe is the best continent in the world. Like we're the best team in the world. I'll take it.
At this point, I think we have a fair argument for that. It's just about taking that last step and turning that potential into a shiny pot.
Yeah, and then as we look to re-enter the EFL Cup, like going into that second leg in February, how did the other half of the competition go?
All right, the other semifinal was Manchester City, a 2-0 winner over Newcastle. That game was in St. James's Park, so they'll go home. City will go home up by 2 goals. Honestly, it seems very likely at this point that it would be a City-Arsenal final. I don't want to write off Newcastle altogether in theirs, and obviously we can't totally write off Chelsea. But with both teams winning their away legs, they're in a very advantageous position. Those games, by the way, will be... Hang on, pull up my schedule here. Those games will be in the first week of February. Arsenal will play Chelsea on February 3rd. Which is a Tuesday, and then on Wednesday it will be City and Newcastle.
Yeah, all right. So you told me recently that apparently the kits that Team USA will be wearing at the World Cup have leaked.
Yes, this came out, I think, a couple weeks ago, actually, beginning of January. But yes, the leaks are out for the home and away kits from Nike, or a bunch of Nike kits leaked in early January, but I only care about the US ones. So you have not seen them yet, is that correct?
No, I have not.
Okay. So
reaction.
Yeah, this is we're doing it live.
All right.
So live reactions. You're gonna open the home one first, I would guess.
Home one first. All right, let's go for it. I'm clicking the link now, and it shoveled me over into an unexpected desktop. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. So you've kind of got the waving bars of the United States flag, the stripes, the red and white stripes.
Yes. So I have on many occasions revealed myself or announced myself as an unabashed supporter of Team Waldo when it comes to U.S. kits. I think we need to go horizontal red and white stripes. I think that needs to be our home look. So I'm pretty happy with this, honestly.
Do you like the wavy stripes?
I'm not opposed to the wavy stripes. So I'll have to find a picture and show you in 1994, because that's really sort of the model that so much of this is going for the last American World Cup. Well, it ended up being their away kit. They never actually wore it in the tournament. They were vertical red stripes, but they were actually parallel waves of each other. So there's a waving pattern to it. There's also a sort of a subtle sash, down across the chest, which has been a kind of an interesting design feature we've seen in a lot of U.S. kits over the years. I'm not in love with the sash, like as a general design principle, but overall, I'm pretty excited about these. I'm pretty happy with this one. I am looking forward to one of these is likely going to make its way to my closet before the World Cup starts.
The Pseudo-Sash, it's kind of wide enough. I don't know that I'd necessarily group it in the same way to like other clubs that have like just like an overt like stripe going down the chest, you know?
Yeah, it's more, I don't know if that's it. I mean, again, this is a leak, so Nike hasn't said anything, but I think it's more of it meant to be like it's one of those, if you know, you know, as the saying goes. Like, if people know about it, it's cool, and if you don't know about it, it's just waving flag. It's still waving. It's a waving flag.
It's cool that it looks like the waving flag. I can't see myself wearing this, I guess, is how I would put it. Whereas, you know, like the away kit from a season or two ago, like the tie-dye looking, like blue and white and red, like I got that. I like that. I wear that. This one, I don't know. I think it may look good on the players. I don't see myself wanting to get this one. It's cool with the blue shorts. I like that altogether ties in the red, white, and blue in prominent ways. The proportions are actually similar. Yeah.
The blue shorts are a definite plus as well.
The blue shorts combined with the red and white stripes, it's in the right proportions to really evoke the flag in a meaningful way like that. I like that about it. Interesting. Well, we'll see if it becomes official or when it becomes official. I don't know.
Yeah,
Footy Headline seems to get pretty reliable leaks.
Yeah, and Nike. My sense is because there were a whole bunch of these. These were Nike was probably had a hand in some of these leaks as well. Because there were a bunch of them. So there may be some changes, some subtle changes, but I expect for both this and the away kit, there will be. So it will be very similar to what you see now.
Yeah. Speaking of which
leads
so
us, I guess, to the
away kit. So let me open that one up now. Let's see. I'm pulling it up. Okay, that's interesting. So we've kind of got a gray motif with stars all over it. Very, very subdued. This is kind of blacked out.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I'll send you this. You know, if you Google image search USA 1994 World Cup jersey, so that's just what I'm going to send you. You can see both versions here, and I'm just popping the link there in our chat for you to see, including the more famous the denim washed star print from '94, which is the denim kit, which is kind of the it's the kit to which all American kits aspire to in some respects. I guess it's hard to. It is something else. But there, if you scroll down on the page, it does include a representation of the home one with the wavy red stripes.
Right.
But you can sort of see, in a sense, stars was always going to be. I think blue with stars was always going to be something that was likely to appear.
Sure.
What we're left with is these sort of more sublimated stars, which what do you think? How does that?
It's very subtle. I mean, I don't know that you're even based on this. I don't know that you'll even see them on TV. I mean, the color is so close to the background color of a jersey. I mean, think about like the Arsenal Gothic A on our home kits this season. Like you don't see it except if you're like really up close looking at it. So I guess that would be the biggest mark against it is it's just going to kind of look like a dark gray, like workout shirt or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my point of comparison is kind of like our Arsenal the third, the white kit this year, which has that sublimated or that very subtle pattern that runs through all of it, and it's fine, but like you don't see it unless you're like wearing it and you see it on your
right.
On the shirt itself.
But I think if you're talking about that white shirt, like that has a lot of character without the sublimated pattern.
Exactly,
where if it didn't have any sublimated pattern, it'd be really good looking. You take away the sublimated pattern from this, it's just a gray T-shirt. I mean, there's like
the blue shirt.
Nothing there. Is it dark blue or is it gray?
It is apparently. Apparently, they're listing it as dark blue. Like a really dark blue.
Okay.
There are very subtle, you can see them on the shoulders, these sort of subtle red stripes on there to break it up just a bit. And then the Nike symbol and the USA crest are done up in white.
I guess the crest, they're actually saying it's metallic silver for the crest and the Nike
metallic
logo.
Yeah. I don't love it. My hope is the stars are a little lighter.
Yeah.
Enough that there's a contrast that you can see them more.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but if I'm left wanting a little more. I say that overall, I'm much happier with it. If this is what it ends up being, I'm much happier with this set than what we got 4 years ago for that World Cup. I did not care for those at all.
Yeah.
The wavy flag stripes, I'm excited for it. This one, it's okay. It's okay.
I do like that taking them as a pair, you've got the stars and the stripes, and I imagine that will invariably be used to refer to this in years to come. Like, I remember the stars and stripes kits.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'll have to see it on the players, as we always end up saying when we conclude our kit previews. Like, we'll see it on them, see how we feel about it then.
Yeah. As usual, though, they tend to look better in most clothing. So, which I don't think is the clothing. I think is just, them being, fit young guy.
Right.
Pretty.
What is coming up next week for Arsenal?
A couple of big ones this week. First, on Tuesday, go ahead, flip back to Paramount Plus. The Champions League is back. Our last big away game. We are away to the San Siro to face Internazionale, Inter Milan. Recall we lost to them in the league phase a year ago at the same game away to Inter Milan. A game we felt a little hard done by. I think it's fair to say. So I'm hoping, and I suspect based on what we've seen with players lineups. There's going to be a lot of effort put into this one. Milan have pot one team, have had a pretty solid campaign. They're sixth in the league phase so far with 12 points, so they're six behind us. So that should be a good one. So that's on Tuesday.
Remind me, when we played them last year, was it? I know we didn't score. It was a 1-0 or 2-0 loss.
It was a 1-0 and a penalty they got.
Right. Okay. So it ended up being a 2-0 on the scoreline. Okay, that's what I remembered. Okay.
No, it was 1-0, but they got a penalty.
Oh, that was the penalty.
Okay. They got a penalty, and we had one denied or called back, or like we didn't get the penalty we felt we deserved. They got a penalty. We're not sure they deserve, but yeah. So it was 1-0 there. And then, speaking of teams who don't get what they deserve, Sunday, Arsenal taking on Manchester United on NBC Sports. United looked pretty good in their first game under Michael Carrick with a 2-0 win at home against Manchester City, which, thanks for that. So of course Manchester United is back, except they're still the same roster that wasn't all that great to begin with. I expect it to be a difficult game. I expect it to be a more difficult game than it probably should be, all things considered. But I am sick and tired of dropping points to inferior Manchester United teams. So I hope we beat them 6-0. But we'll see. I'll happily take 1-0. But yeah, 2 big games this week, away to Inter Milan and then a home against Manchester United. So get excited.
All right, and that one will be on NBC Sports Network and Peacock from what I'm seeing. So thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Your homework for today is especially for our podcast listeners. If you could please go into the app where you're hearing this and give us a rating, and if you're so inclined, a review would be nice as well. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
So come on, Arsenal, just score.